Yeah, both of those things are really important. For us, we're not a team that is a dribble drive offense. If we're dribbling the ball, it should be to either improve your passing angle or to get to the basket. It's not to, just dribble around the perimeter and hopefully create some mismatches or whatever. We're an offense that passes and cuts, sets a lot of screens, and then just reads the defense off of that.
Welcome to episode 9 of Game Time. Today's coaching conversation is with Amy Vachon, head coach of the University of Maine women's basketball program. We get into a great discussion on how to teach and run an offense that doesn't require many quick hitters. We talk about practicing in a way that's going to improve your players' basketball IQ. We get into a whole bunch of other stuff. Let's get to it. One of the main things, or the beginning things that I like to ask coaches to kind of give the listeners and viewers an idea of your coaching style is, what do you want your team at Maine to be known for? What's your team identity?
Yeah, I think for us, I hope our team, our program is looked at as really hard workers, playing really smart, being efficient. I think those three things are really important. I was a high school coach, I was a middle school coach. I mean, you're not always going to have the best players in the world on your team, but if you can get them to play hard for you, and play smart basketball, I think you can be very successful.
So when I watch your game film, that's the first thing that stands out is intelligence. They're very smart players. The basketball IQ is very high. You play an offense that's a little slower in terms, it's more deliberate in pace. What do you value in terms of offense? Is ball movement, player movement, that kind of stuff? What do you focus on?
Yeah, both of those things are really important. For us, we're not a team that is a dribble drive offense. If we're dribbling the ball, it should be to either improve your passing angle or to get to the basket. It's not to, just dribble around the perimeter and hopefully create some mismatches or whatever. We're an offense that passes and cuts, sets a lot of screens, and then just reads the defense off of that. We don't call a lot of things. We don't have a lot of set plays, but our players learn to read the defense and learn where they should go, what kind of cut they should move, that they should make, that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, in terms of just to kind of hammer home the point, I guess your pace of play is lower in the country, but your
Mhm.
efficiency is in the 80th percentile. So in terms of points per possession,
Yeah.
um, how much practice time is spent going through offensive philosophies and down screens and coming off screens and back cuts and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of that, especially our assistants do a lot in the off season in the summer. When our freshmen come in, we really hammer home fundamentals, footwork, how you come off a screen, how you set a screen, where you come off the screen after you pop, all of that kind of stuff. Those are details that are critical to our offense, especially when we're not running plays. In order to make a decision, you have to be in the right spot and your feet have to be in the right spot. We work a lot on footwork, so we're not traveling. We will turn it over, but very few times are we turning it over off of travel, because our footwork, we work a lot on that. So, and I mean, if we had different players or different style players, maybe we'd go faster and maybe we'd be able to play a little faster. But we try to really, we like this style and we're able to compete with a lot of really good teams playing this style.
So cuts to the basket seem to be high value in your offense as well. Whether the ball goes to the high post, someone's cutting off them to the basket. Person at the top has the ball. If they dribble to the wing, they're going back door. Is a lot of that spent in practice as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we do a lot of 3-on-0, 5-on-0, 3-on-3, that kind of stuff. A lot of practice with that. At this point of the season, we're doing more 5-on-5 just because we're in the middle of games and everything. But preseason, summertime, there's a lot of time spent on, 3-on-0, 3-on-3, 1-on-1, all of that kind of stuff to make those reads, to know, if someone's denying me, I can back cut. If they're not denying me, I can come off we call it a six, a handoff. And then the next part is, okay, how are they guarding me off the handoff? Are they going under or are they going over? Like if they go over, you have to attack. If they go under, you got to be able to shoot it. So simple things like that, we spend a lot of, it sounds simple, but it's really a difficult concept and it's a hard shot to be able to make, catching the ball behind a six to a handoff to make it. So we spend a lot of time with that.
So when you're doing that in practice, do you tell the defenders what to do, or is everything just kind of free flowing?
It depends. In the beginning, we'll tell them what to do. You know what I mean? So in the beginning, we'll say, okay, they're going under every time to get used to shooting that, or they're going over every time. And then we'll say, okay, you got to read what they're doing, So at this point in the season, it's reading what they're doing. But every preseason, every postseason, we go back to that. In fact, yesterday we went back to it a little bit because we weren't making the right reads. We had kind of got away from the details. So we went back for, I don't know, 10 minutes yesterday and just worked on popping out after a screen. How are they guarding? Are you back cutting? Are you coming off it? That kind of thing. So
The three ball is important in your offense as well. It's a big part of it.
yeah,
You're top 25 in three pointers made. It helps to have a forward trailing like Caroline Dotsey who can hit threes.
yeah.
But a lot of it is like you've been talking about, cutting to open space, finding space off of screens. There's not a lot of dribble drive kickouts. So it's a lot of catch and shoot. How much time, or do you have any practice drills that you like for catch and shoot?
Yeah, we do spend a lot of time. Again, this type of year, it's kind of hard because you're in the scouting mode, right? So you have game, practice, game, but when you have more practice time, we like to spend time with our shooting. What's really big for us is getting shots, practicing shots that we're going to get out of our offense. So every day at the beginning of practice, we spend 12 minutes, and 2 minutes is a group and they rotate, and it's each 2 minutes they're working on a shot that they get out of our offense. So that might be, after they enter into the elbow, they screen away, they pop, they take that shot. Or, another one was a back cut and a fill, they shoot that fill shot, that kind of stuff. So we spend a lot of time doing that. And then we do a drill at the end of practice every day. We got it actually from St. Joe's because they shoot it the lights out. So we asked them, what do you guys do? And one of the drills that they do, they put 3 minutes on the clock and you have 4 spots. You have to make 10 at each spot in 3 minutes. So you're trying to get 40 makes in 40 makes in 3 minutes. So
And that's the whole team shooting?
that's the whole team
Yeah.
shooting. Yeah, you have a passing line and shooting line. So we've done that since we played St. Joe's actually. And so that's another shooting drill that we do.
You talked about turnovers as well. You do not turn the ball over very much. It's obviously lower in terms of turnovers because your possessions are lower,
Yeah.
but you also have an extremely high assist to turnover ratio. Do you attribute that just to having intelligent players and
Yeah, and I think the style of play, that's how we're built. We're built on moving the ball on the pass, and making good reads. So if we are playing well, our assists should be high. Especially this year, we don't have, last year was a little bit different. We had a dominant guard and a dominant post player, and they could create on their own. So this year we don't have a lot of kids that can create on their own. So it's creating for each other. And that's done a lot of times with screens and hard cuts and that kind of stuff.
we've talked a lot about the pace of play, but also you are very efficient when you do run. Transition wise, I think you're, according to Synergy Sports, let me look it up here. You're top 15 in points per possession in transition.
We should run more then, I guess.
How often do you practice? I mean, you're also very good defensively in transition as well. So how much time is spent, going from offense to defense and defense to offense in practice?
Yeah, early on in the year, a lot more. I think the transition offense helps. We have a point guard this year, a new point guard, and she really pushes the ball pretty well. So that has helped on that end, and she has our eyes up a lot. So that has helped. Defensive transition, we do work a lot. I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, it was kind of just get back and find somebody. And now we have more of a philosophy where we have two guards back who are, well, maybe one or two, whatever. They're going to take the wings, and then we have someone stopping the ball, hopefully to slow it down. And then a rim runner, and the last one is kind of taking whoever's left. So that's kind of helped a little bit better with transition defense. We're not perfect at it, but that's the idea right there.
So in terms of basketball IQ and understanding the game and making the right cuts, how much time do you spend watching game film to learn that?
Yeah, in the beginning, when it's just us, we watch our practice a lot. We watch ourselves a lot, and I'm a coach. I ask questions a lot to them. So I'll say, because they are just making reads. So, they'll run a set, they'll run a possession, and someone will make a cut, and I'll say, like, Liv, why did you make that cut? Just so you can get their brains thinking. And sometimes they tell you the reason and it's a correct, and you're like, okay, good. Other times they're like, I have no idea why I made that cut, and you can tell because there was no reason to make it. So just kind of prompting them to think and like, why did you do this? Helps. And a lot of times I might have a thought in my head where I'm like, she shouldn't have done that. And then she tells me why she did it. And I'm like, oh, that actually makes a lot of sense. Okay. I think for me, asking questions like that has really been a benefit for both me and our players.
That's also a tough one too, because not always, I mean, no one's 100% right on these. Even after the fact, you don't know if you were right or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
If they did something and two other people could think that there's something else that should have been done. So that's a tough one. It's good to get them thinking before they're actually doing it then. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's important. I think especially in kind of the offense that we run, it needs to become second nature. Sometimes it's really hard. It takes a couple years for kids to really figure it out. But once they figure it out, it's really a lot of fun. And because they don't have to go to the same place every time. They're not doing the same thing every time. It's something different all the time. And, but they have to be thinking. And so if they can explain their thinking, that just puts them in a better position moving forward, that they're going to be more successful the next possession.
How much time do you spend on, you said that there's not a lot of set plays, but how much time do you spend on the set plays that you have? Because I notice you're very efficient again on like after timeout plays, um, short shot clock kind of situations. How much time do you spend on that?
Yeah, I mean, we don't we probably spend right now even offense defense in our practices the same amount of time. Within the set plays, like I actually had talked to our team the other day because they started counting down. We have a 30-second shot clock. They started counting down at 10. I was like, you don't need to count at 10. Like that's a long time to count. Like you can start at 6, whatever. And then we don't really have plays that end of shot clocks. They just have to keep running their offense and find one. So I think it's just, it's even amount of offense and defense that we do. Some days we'll work on different kind of structures. So we call it low. We might work on low one day. We might work on chin another day. We might work on wave the next day, different things that we might run. And then if we want to look at one action in what we're going to run, we might really focus on that on a specific day. But that's kind of how we do that.
So in terms of practice structure, let's say beginning of the season when you're able to kind of have more time to teach and do things,
Yeah.
what would a high level practice look like in terms of offense, defense, transition, skill development?
Yeah, so it will be all of that. And they're long, our practices at the beginning are 2.5, 3 hours long. So you can fit a lot in that 3 hours. But we would do some shooting, obviously a lot of some position work. So our players would go with their position coaches. We'd have a section of kind of conditioning while they're shooting or, like a layup shooting drill. Like we have like 3 or 4 of those we put in there. Some free throws, and then we would really break down our offense. So we'd have 3-on-3s, 2-on-2s sometimes. We do a lot of 5-on-0 at the beginning. So they kind of know the flow of how everything flows into everything else. And then defensively, old school shell, we do that a lot. We really do. We do that a lot. So we'll do half court defense and figuring out, teaching them what our coverages are, how we want to guard ball screens, how we're going to guard the post, all of that kind of stuff, where our help is coming from. It takes a lot, how we guard different screens, like screen away. It takes a lot. There's a lot. And then if you want to do a zone, so kind of every day is a little bit different in what you do. And then working on that transition, a lot of times we do 3 possessions. We don't scrimmage a lot. We will, every once in a while, but it's rare. We typically go like 3 possessions, offense, or defense, defense, and stop and then talk about what we just saw, what happened, that kind of stuff. So
How much time would you recommend for, let's say, high school coaches to actually stop and, teach? And so everyone's kind of standing around listening. How much
yeah.
time do you think that should be done through practice?
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, it's critical. I think I really like the, 3 possession kind of thing, or even 2 possession kind of thing. You can get up and down, but then you can really stop and teach them, and then they get a breath and they whatever. When you go, in my opinion, when you go 5 minutes or 10 minutes up and down, there's so much that happens in that time. A lot of times you forget. I'm going to forget what happened. I have a hard time in 3 possessions. What happened? I was like, what happened down there? But and then especially with the kid, they're in the moment, right? So they're not going to remember. That was 3 minutes ago. They don't remember what happened. So I think it's really critical. I think there's a time and place for it. I mean, I think there's a time and place for scrimmaging. I think there's a time and place for that, but I think it's just a really important thing to do.
Do you have stats that you track, maybe on the bench or from others that aren't box score stats that you feel are important to your success?
We look at our points per possession a lot, and our defense points per possession. That's something we look at. Our assists we look at. Rebounding is something we look at. We don't have a huge staff, so like analytically, we're not going crazy with a lot of different things. But the points per possession for us is typically when the points per possession is, 9-ish, point nine, sorry, not nine. That would be amazing. Point nine, point nine. We're playing pretty well, and so I mean, that's, even if it's like 0.87, 0.88, like that's great for us. That's kind of our goal every game is like a 0.9 if we can get that. And that's really hard to get, but that's our goal. And so that's something that we look at a lot.
A couple months ago, I talked to Coach Kelly Graves at Oregon, and he had mentioned that in the women's game, most of the turnovers happen from passes, and in the men's game, it's mostly on dribble turnovers.
Mhm.
So I'm wondering, with your offense, passing is at a premium.
Yeah.
You need to read the defense and make the right passes. And
Yeah.
how often are you stopping practices to talk about the passes that are made or the reads?
Yeah, again, yeah, I mean, it's often, a lot of times, even if they make the right decision, I'll stop it and say, why did you do that? Just so they know. Like I don't want us to be lucky,
Yeah.
like I want us to be good. So I mean, we'll take luck when it comes, but in general, I want us to be good. So if someone makes a really good play, I want them to be able to tell me why they made a good play, what was good about it. Like we had a kid the other day who took 1 3 that wasn't a great 3 for her, and then she took another one and she made it, and I said, why was that a good 3, the second one? And she was able to tell me why it was over the other one, and I think that's the most important thing.
Do you have any conditioning drills that you could share? You had mentioned, kind of at the beginning of the season you'll run some stuff to get them up and down the court. Do you have one that you like or the players like?
I don't know if they like any of
it,
them.
it would be
um,
all ball handling and everything else
yeah.
if it's the players. Yeah.
Yeah, no, One drill we do is called transition shooting, and we do it full court. And so we have three lines on one baseline, and then three people on the other baseline, and then three people at the half court. And basically, what it is, they stay in that line, and the person at the half court comes, receives a pass from her teammate, takes a shot. The person who passes sprints to the other end of the court with her teammate. And so you can take a three, you can take a two, you can take a layup. You get a layup at each spot, and you go, and then every minute you switch lines, your whole group switches. So that's a pretty good one. I mean, if they go hard and we go 3 minutes, if they go hard for 3 minutes, that's a pretty good one. That gets their heart rate pretty up there. I like to do our conditioning when they're actually doing something with basketball. I mean, there's a time and place for running and all that kind of stuff, but as much as we can, we try and put a basketball in their hands and doing some kind of skill when they're running. So,
Is there any aspect of coaching or leadership that you feel has you've grown the most in? Like if players from when you first started coaching were playing for you, they'd be like, "Oh, she didn't do that before." Is there
I guess
anything?
it depends
Any
who you ask.
yeah? Is
Some
there
of
any
them come in
growth?
and
Yeah.
say, "Oh, yeah." Some of them come in now and say, "Oh my gosh, you're so easy." Da, 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 da. I think that's the nature. I think any coach would probably tell you that. I don't know. I mean, I think in this day and age, I try. I don't know how if I always succeed, but I really try to look at the whole student athlete as a person, not just a basketball player. This world is crazy, and there's a lot of things going on, and so I really try my best to do that as best I can.
Are there any characteristics that you, or one characteristic that you feel a successful coach has to have?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to be authentic. I think you have to be yourself. You can't try to be anyone else. I think that's critical. Kids are young women, they see through a fake a million miles away, and so if you're trying to be someone else or you're trying to act a certain way and that's not who you are, you're not going to be they're not going to trust you. I think if you're authentic and you're honest, they will trust you. They might not always like what you say, but they'll trust you. And I think that's really critical.
I like that. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Question for you on in terms of, I'm sure that in the recruiting process, you or your assistants have been to a lot of high school practices. Do you have any tips that you feel high school coaches could use in terms of getting the most out of their players?
Yeah. I mean, I think that I think a lot of the high schools that we go to and the practices that we see there, first, there are a lot of great high school coaches out there. And I think a lot of times, and youth coaches, and I think a lot of times they're not appreciated as much as they should be, So I would say thank you to all of them who are out there because it's a lot of times it can be a thankless job, and it's really hard. I would say the one thing I think that translates especially for and it's good for just life in general. The biggest difference that we see when we go in to a high school practice compared to college practices is how loud it is. Like in college, everyone's talking all the time. There's constant communication. In high school, you go in and it's like a church, and a lot of that is just the nature of it, I mean, but if, high school coaches can, get the kids talking a little bit more, I think it can help them and it will help them if they go on to the next level, whatever level it would be. It's not just Division 1, it's college in general. I think that's really important.
Okay, coach, I'll get you out of here on this. I call this the fast break portion. It's just a few quick answer questions. We've got team A is the best offensive team in the country, mediocre defensively, and team B is the opposite, best defensively, mediocre offensively. Who would you rather coach?
I would rather coach the offensive team,
Yeah.
to be quite honest with you. I know defense wins championships, but I really, yeah. I struggle when you run really good offense and then you get a wide open shot and you just can't hit it.
Yeah.
I would have a really hard time with that.
What's one thing that you're trying to get better at coaching wise?
Being patient.
Well, your team is very patient, so I
Yeah,
can imagine there.
they're good. I need to be more patient.
I would have
Yeah.
thought that would trickle down from the top.
Yeah, maybe it might be what I put out there. Inside, I need to be more patient, maybe.
Yeah. Okay, if I'm coming to watch a Maine Black Bears women's game, what is one restaurant and one site that I need to see in Orono?
Orono, it's Orono.
Orono, or I practice it like 4 times.
I know, I'm sure you did. I
Yeah.
know. Oh gosh, what's one restaurant? Well, you'd probably go to the greater Bangor area because Orono is pretty small. So I would say restaurant that would be really good would be Timber. Timber's really good. It's a good restaurant. And a site in Bangor, well, I think if you're coming up in the summer, we have great concerts. We have a waterfront right on the water. You can go to a restaurant right on the water, eat some seafood, and then go to a concert after. That'd be really good.
That sounds good. That's great. Well, Coach, thank you very much for your time. I
Thank you
appreciate
so much, and I
appreciate
appreciate it.
all the insights. I
Yeah.
know some high school coaches and youth coaches are going to find this very valuable. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And best of luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
We'll see you later.